Welcome back to
Burning Boat Business. Oh, I was gonna. Damn it. Well, that was the most awkward start ever.
I thought you said you had a little thing to start.
I do.
So I left it.
I thought we were saying the same thing at the same time.
Oh, but we stopped.
I know. Okay. It's very strange that I have a large nose, and I'll tell you why.
I guess you're privileged to have a big nose then, because you don't live in harsh conditions.
The habanero one? Holy fuck, dude. Woo! You know, maybe I've been treating this bike as some sort of parkour bike when really it's just a...
I once came face to face with a wild rhinoceros. That was pretty crazy.
I got stung by a bee once.
Okay, welcome back everyone to a non-awkward start of Burning Boat Business. Here we go.
Here we go.
Clap.
Woo! I'm back.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You moved back in.
I moved back in.
This is a...
Me and Phoebe living together again.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
Every so often, you just move out for a little bit.
Yes. And boy, was I punished this time.
Oh, no.
Because on Wednesday, I think I took the computer... No.
Yeah, it was it was a very...
Was it Wednesday?
No, it was... I brought it back to you on Saturday.
Saturday. Last Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was nice. You just showed up at my house.
So we were having an extra day off, a Saturday off to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And then...
Friday it rained, so we were like, let's not bring the computer because it's not insured
You
yet.
wanted to bring your computer home because taking a day off was too much for you.
Yeah.
So brought over your computer.
Yeah.
And then once it's there, it's like, well, then it might as well just stay there for a day. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'll bring it back the next day.
Right.
And then a week
Usually
later...
Takes about a week
You
to
come
come
crawling back, saying, please let me in,
Let
sir.
me back.
I need the office.
Yeah. No, it's never like I'm trying to escape or anything.
I know. It's just like there's a practical reason, and then it turns into a little bit more than just...
Well, it always goes a
or
little
two.
bit too long, maybe. Yeah. But this time the problem was that on Thursday I got really sick.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we did good work.
Well, we were out shooting all of Wednesday.
Right. We were shooting all Wednesday, right? And I got home Wednesday night still, and I was so freaking motivated that I like got all the footage in.
That's when you edited it?
I did because I literally did nothing for 4 days. So everything you saw, I did that night after the shoot still.
We're working on a very exciting little video that we've been working on for like 5 months.
Yeah.
4 months now.
Yeah.
We've been shooting. Finally able to edit it together, so that'll be good.
Yeah, so I was excited. I brought home, I started working on the footage, and where am I going with this?
I don't know. I was like, oh, there's a story here.
It was one of those things. I was hoping that by like Thursday, I was gonna wait for you to call me and be like, hey, so how's the, and I was gonna be like, oh, it's done.
Ooh.
I was gonna pull one of those. Yeah, it would have been. But then Thursday, I woke up.
Not gonna lie. Yesterday when you showed up, I was like, he's probably finished.
I would have. I mean, that was the plan. I don't know if I would have.
I was so excited.
It would have been nice
to watch this stuff. Basically, it's like one long continuous shot with a bunch of invisible edits.
Yeah.
Showing off this really cool rock climbing gym. Choreographed perfectly, if I say so myself.
Well, not perfectly.
Near perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, choreographed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so that was the plan. But then Thursday, I woke up with a sore throat. And, I'm just, when it comes to being sick, I might be the biggest pussy out there,
Potentially.
I'm really difficult. And
you.
I'm not calling anybody, but it's just, I get very like, I can't do anything.
Right.
No. And it's like, that is, those are probably the loneliest experiences, I think, is when you're sick and you don't have somebody to help you, because such a small thing like...
Oh, God.
No, I'm not trying to be, but like, you're like, oh, I need to go and make food, and like, oh God, I need to go to the grocery store. No, I would never.
I'll make you a little soup.
I would never do that. But just the point of like, you gotta go to the grocery, like I can put my pants on, and I'm just moping to myself. There's nobody to mope to. I'm just moping to myself. Oh, I'm gonna put on my pants. I'm in the grocery store, and I look at everybody, and I'm like, everyone in the grocery store better know that I'm sick and that I'm having a tough time, And then And the other thing is because of eating only like plant-based, I can't get like just the ramen. You got to like make yourself a soup, you know?
Yeah, getting the quick fix meals are not
right.
super convenient.
Right.
You got a lot of money.
I wouldn't even know. I mean, the grocery store I go to doesn't even have any.
You can like order from Souls.
Well, that would have been nice. Yeah, that didn't even cross my mind. That's how poor I am right now. It didn't even for a second cross my mind.
That's a thing that most people be able to do.
Anyways, so I was sick. I was being a little bitch about it, as I tend to be, and then I started feeling better yesterday. So it took a little while. And in the middle of it, I lost my bet, right? On like Thursday.
This is what I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
You lost your bet.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
I just lost it, I think I did a thing where I thought I was kind of gaming the system a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not gaming it, but just using my point system. Yeah. But obviously not thinking, what if I get sick for 2 days and not do anything?
Right.
And then I just royally fucked myself. So that's okay. It was honestly a bit of a relief, and
wait until you gotta do the forfeit.
Yeah, so now I gotta go to this pizza place and order a pizza and then say after I get it that I don't want cheese on it, which is horrible. And I feel it's not even for me. I feel worse for them. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna tip them. I'm gonna order one pizza, and I think I'm just gonna tip them.
You have to. Part of the deal was you have to refuse to pay for 2 pizzas.
Yeah, but
you can tip them.
I will. Yeah. That's what I'm.
You have to. If they say.
Unless they're total dicks about it, if they're so big of it,
they are gonna be.
I like maybe.
And
nice.
You gotta vlog it.
I know, yeah, but secretly, I'm not gonna be like, "Hey, here I am at the pizza shop."
Camera rolling.
I'm gonna hold the camera down. I'm gonna say
out in the open.
Yeah. I'm gonna order the cheapest pizza, and then I'm gonna be like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Can I have that without cheese?"
I mean, I was surprised because normally you have you're quite good at. If there's a genuine, reason to ask for some kind of compromise or some kind of alternative to avoid losing the bet because there's a legit reason, you'll just call me and we'll talk about it. We'll come up with something. Yeah. But you just straight up said, I lost it.
Yeah, well, I thought,
okay.
I knew that if I asked, you would just let it slide. And ultimately, I was like, you know what, this is becoming a little bit too slidey. Look, I lost it. Right. I tried. I thought about something that week, and I got sick, and I didn't plan for that, and I lost it, so that's fine. And I think we should post on Patreon. I think that could be fun.
Well, that's why the video is so important.
Yeah, so it'll be good.
And that's what'll make you cringe more.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed after the fact. I mean, I spent 2 days, like I told you, and you had no sympathy. I love how you don't. I'll say something to you, and you're like, okay.
Like what?
Like I was like, oh, I didn't have anything to watch. Because I couldn't watch YouTube and I don't have Netflix anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you're like, oh yeah, but you could have. And I was like, yeah, but I don't feel sorry for me. I appreciate that. I need some harshness sometimes. So I sat there for 2 days and I watched. When you're sick, all you want to do is obviously lay down and watch something.
Watch movies.
Right.
Watch TV shows.
I didn't have anything, so I just watched chess videos, which was the only thing I could watch.
Sounds like a weird form of torture.
It was because I was also a little bit. Let me try to get to the whole sickness, because I think the sickness is a weird thing, because I think I have usually so much momentum going. We have so many things going on, and I think personally, I had a lot kind of moving with Boris and Johan and ADR and everything. And when I get sick, there's this wall that comes down and everything stops at once, right? All my habits, all my everything, that I get a little bit, I shut down mentally too, And I think it's healthy because I think really when I get sick, it's kind of the feeling of oh, maybe I've been pushing a little bit too hard. And I should just take a couple days and just do nothing, right? And sleep.
Should have taken that weekend.
Huh?
Should have taken that weekend.
Look, this is how I do it, buddy boy.
He just goes all the way and then crashes hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still a little loopy. What was I saying?
Let's get to the point of what we're gonna do.
so much I wanted to talk about.
This video. We wanted to talk about, in the past couple of podcasts, we wanted to talk about veganism because it's something that we've had a lot of conversations
yeah,
about.
yeah.
And so far,
yeah,
the conversations or the podcasts that have both been the most fun to record and seem to have gotten the best response have been the ones where we talk about something that like
putting yourself out there a little
and
bit,
like having
giving
like a mini debate conversation thingy-majig.
Yeah.
And I was saying veganism should be one of them.
Okay.
Because I've been vegan for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
At least over a year and a half. And so have you, almost.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't call yourself a vegan, and I find that very interesting, and I want to try and understand that. And so I wanted to start there.
Let's get into it. Excuse me. I don't call myself a vegan. Yeah, it came from the thing that occasionally I would have a situation where I would eat a piece of meat or something, right?
Yeah, you said on some occasions you had...
Or like a piece of cheese or something, they're very rare occasions. But that has happened. And then I would feel like I somehow had to explain myself to somebody.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily want to or think it was a bad thing. And then I just felt like I didn't want to call myself something that would also then be seen as like, oh, you know, someone could be like, oh, you're a cheater, or you're cheating, or you're not really that. And that's how I don't really need an identifier for my diet. I mean, I just eat a certain way. I don't need a word to describe that.
Yeah, I get that, and I think you've made that. I mean, it makes sense to not want to have to, like, you shouldn't have to explain it to someone else.
No,
your choices are your own. But I think,
and there's the whole thing of like, you know, some people don't eat honey, and some people, and it becomes this whole thing, and it's like I really don't give a shit enough to want to be part of a club that I don't fully maybe know all the rules of. And I don't know if anybody knows all the rules, but you know.
So let's start with why do you eat the way you eat then? Why do you, for the most part, eat vegan?
It's pretty like I watched Earthlings.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what? I should try this because that really affected me. And then it just went off of that. And I think for a long time it held because, my roommate did it with me. And then I saw, you know, you were doing it. And there's a bit of it's a bit like a bet. Like I didn't want to like concede at some point, you know? And,
but like, why did you do it to start with? Like, why did you take it up? Just because of watching the documentary?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Just Earthlings?
I'd never thought you talked to me about it. And you said, oh, watch this. And I watched it. And
wait, is that Cowspiracy or is that Earthlings?
Earthlings.
The one where you see animals getting...
Yeah, it's like, pretty fucking brutal.
Graphic stuff.
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch.
Yeah. And I don't know, I just also got in my head this whole thing of how I would go to the grocery store, I would buy these things, but my mind, it really wasn't connecting with what it was.
Yeah.
Like it was so easy for me.
It's just a piece of food.
It's just there. I mean, I don't even have to think. It's pre-packaged in such a way that, of course, you're not going to think about it really. So seeing it, then I kind of couldn't avoid thinking about it. And then it was just like, well, you know. And also the whole thing of like, I don't think I could honestly go and, maybe I could, but I wouldn't want to every day stab an animal or kill an animal for me to be able to eat if there's other alternatives. So that kind of came from that, I guess. I just felt like the right thing to do, I guess.
And then it turned into more of like, well, now I'm doing it, and now I don't want to not do it? Because then it seems like I don't care about it, or because actually I don't care about it. And
no, it's kind of the thing anymore. It's kind of the thing of like ignorance is bliss. It's like some things you choose not to know about because to change something like that takes a lot of effort and stuff. As soon as you watch the documentary and you get the information, it's a little bit hard then to ignore it. I mean,
Right.
It would have been nicer to just never have seen it, and I could have just, you know, gone on.
Do you wish that? Do you
no,
wish that
I think
you'd never seen it?
No,
and
I think it's good, but now that's why I'm trying to take back what's mine a little bit and create my own way of doing it, I guess.
So the part that I don't, because I think we agree with pretty much everything, but then I think the part that we don't agree on is I feel that if you feel like this, then it kind of counts across the board, and it doesn't only count sometimes, and sometimes it's okay to do it. Like you were saying, I wouldn't be okay with every day stabbing an animal. Yeah. Sounds like you would be okay with it occasionally.
Yeah.
That's the part that I like. If you don't find it right and there's an alternative, why is it okay on other days?
I don't think there's a good argument. I mean, I don't think I'm going to present anything good, but I do value like being a human, you know, and that comes with like a lot of different situations and a lot of different things, and sometimes socially or culturally it makes more sense for me just to not say anything. And I think I also don't like to be a burden in a sense.
I think that's a big part of it, and I definitely feel that too.
Right.
But for me it's much more important, at least for me, to stick to my, I don't know, what would you call it? What I've decided I think is right, rather than, so an example would be going to someone else's house. Yeah. And then you would feel uncomfortable kind of requesting a vegan meal or not eating what they've prepared if they didn't know that you were vegan, for example. Yeah. And I would feel the same, but I would just either like, I hate going to other people's houses specifically because of that kind of issue. I'm always like, did they know beforehand? Like, right. I hate that feeling of like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Right. I don't eat that. Right. And it's like, oh, but I made it for you. Right. It's and for like me, a touchy subject.
It's touchy, and it's a little bit, I've said this before, I think certain things like, I think certain people really show love through food. Mm-hmm. Especially like, I think my brother's very much that way. And it just, and I get it. It's such a like, oh, well, you feel uncomfortable. That's the price you have to pay for an animal not being killed. That sounds like a fair trade-off. Right. But I value hanging out with my brother and stuff. And he loves to cook a rack of ribs on the grill. That's like his, and then he can share it with everybody. And he spent 8 hours cooking it, and he gets people together, and that's how he shows his love. Right. And a little bit, I say, I'm fine with that. I'm still going to go home and not eat meat, but if I go to someone else and they've prepared this thing, it almost goes past it for me. It almost goes to another, realm. I don't know what it is, but that's very important to me.
I see it as an opportunity to, I don't know, I feel this weird, and that is another point that we talked about a lot. I don't know if it's an obligation or just a need to kind of like what we were talking about. If you know something, then you kind of have to act on it a little bit. Yeah. And I feel like knowing what eating meat does to the environment and what those animals are, 99% of the time treated like, it's kind of my responsibility to also then talk about it with
that's where we
some
disagree,
other people.
Right? Yeah.
And to not just, keep it a secret for myself. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a reason why we choose to eat a certain way, because we find that that's either morally the right thing to do or environmentally the right thing to do or ethically or whatever. Right. So why keep that a secret, and why not talk about it if it comes up? And I think
if it comes up,
I think like my grandma, she's also definitely someone who shows love by preparing food. Yeah. And I feel like I'm not taking that away from her by saying, sorry, Grandma, I'm not going to eat the food that we've, eaten for our whole lives. Right. Let's think about something else that we can, make together, or that you can make. Yeah. Because of this very important issue. And I feel like it's like, I don't find that you're picking one or the other.
Yeah. Again, I don't think I have a good argument. It's just kind of specific situations or feelings, or, same with my grandparents. I fucking hate talking about it. Yeah. And it's all they can talk about now. And it drives me insane. Yeah, but veganism. Taylor needs to have a special. Right. And like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
One of my least favorite things about being vegan is being someone who at least is perceived as being, picky or needs special attention.
And I hate pickiness.
I cannot stand picky people.
No, it's the worst.
I hate it when people order at a restaurant and they say, "Can I have that but without?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, it comes with it.
Without bell peppers.
Just eat it.
It's 80% water. How could it possibly be that
eat it
gross?
Or leave it. Don't ask for it without.
No.
But I find like it's just more, it's not because I'm picky. It's much more than that.
I know, but it comes across as pickiness.
It totally does.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand it, if you haven't seen it before, it can be like, oh, well, who does this pretentious person think he is?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just eat what everyone else is eating?
Yeah.
I'm like, well.
But that's the thing to me, and I get, this is, let's have a bit of what do you call it? A shield of not respect. Like, we're going to say some things that maybe aren't fully thought out, trying to figure stuff out here. A shield of vulnerability, right?
A safe place.
Safe space.
Where we can say stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then we can say, actually, I didn't mean that.
Excuse me, Professor. I need a safe space to be able to. Okay. So yeah. What were you just saying? I wanted to go off of that. Going to your grandma. Right, being picky.
Yeah, being picky.
Yeah.
Don't order something if you don't want an element on the plate.
Right.
I'm saying it's more important than just that.
Yes. But for me, it's very much the thing of like, I would be very encouraging. And I know you said you'd be encouraging as well. You wouldn't shut it down. Mm-hmm. But if everyone just ate less meat, right? So just be more aware that it's like, well, we never ate like this, having meat every day. I mean, it would be like in German, you have the word Sonntagsbraten, which means like you get the meat on a Sunday, and it's this hearty meal that should last you the rest of the week, and you're not going to have like meat every day and everything. Right. So to me, everything is much more to do with just consume moderation. Less, think about what you're eating, blah, blah, blah. But also nobody needs to be perfect. Nobody needs to be sort of an all or nothing, and I think I fall more into that boat as well with everything in life, right?
Yeah.
I really like everything in moderation, even moderation itself, so that you allow yourself certain life experiences or whatever. And I guess that's, valuing that over an animal's life. I get that's a very strange pairing, but at the same time, it's like, well, maybe, I've got other priorities that, I guess you can. I'm not saying you, but people could call me heartless or something for that, but I think it's just trying to bring the numbers down. If everyone does a little bit, if everyone would say, "Oh, I'll eat meat 2 times a week" or something, would make a massive difference.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I also think it's like it should be a big deal when you kill an animal. I don't think it's wrong. I wouldn't go to a village and try to convince them why it's wrong or something. It would be like totally out of touch, I think, and totally like ridiculous. But I would say, value the life.
Right.
It is a big deal. It's pretty brutal. All this blood comes out and all this, it's pretty gory, and you cut it up and it's a living thing that's not dead, and then you eat it. And
so do you think, is there a time outside of necessity that it's okay to kill an animal, as in necessity being for like survival? So there's definitely parts of the world where that's just the only food that people have access to.
Right.
To go around trying to say veganism,
right,
you should be vegan because it's
right, harming
animals. I think makes sense, and that's not what we're talking about either. So
no.
Do you think it's okay to kill animals outside of necessity?
Outside of necessity, I mean, if you're asking like, if someone else does it and I see it, am I going to be like, I would be okay with it? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not so much that, it's more of like, as a fundamental moral basis, is it right or wrong? It's not whether you would do it or whether you would stop someone. It's right. Is it okay? Is it right to do, unless, or outside of it being, for your own life? I think everyone in at least the Western world can eat alternatively.
Yeah.
Can choose to not eat and get everything they need.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases be more healthy. But that it is very rarely, I mean, it's something that gets brought up as an argument all the time. Like, what about for survival? And it's like, yeah, that's a great argument. I would eat meat too if I had to survive. If I was on an island and I would die if I didn't. I'd eat it. Yeah. All the time. Yeah. But that's just not the reality that we're in. We do have the choice not to do it. I'm asking more of like, on a fundamental level, do you think it's right or wrong or can be justified for other reasons than just necessity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be, I don't know, whether it's justifiable or not, I guess it's up to someone else, but I would say, yeah, I could see, circumstances where personally I would be fine with it.
Like what?
I mean, if you raise a chicken, and you have it in your yard and you get eggs from it and blah, 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 and it reaches a certain age and you decide to kill it and cook it up, I'm fine with that. I think a lot of what I disagree with is the sort of mass scale of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely
and that goes beyond animals. Even. It's like anything,
issue.
Right?
Right.
The same thing with fish and sushi and everything. I'm like, I don't want to stop eating sushi. I just think if you eat sushi, you should go to a really nice restaurant and you should have to pay a lot for sushi. I think you should have to pay a lot for chicken meat.
Right.
I think it should be a rarity or like a special sort of thing. You go to the grocery store, it's not the cheapest thing in the fucking aisle, which is, I mean, I don't know about here necessarily because I haven't bought any meat since I've been here, but when I used to live in California, like you could get fucking 2 pounds of chicken for like $6 or some shit. I'd be like, how is this fucking possible? It's like 4 chickens on this platter.
We were streaming something the other day and it had American ads within the show.
Yeah.
And there was like 10 or 15 chicken nuggets from Burger King for $1.49.
Yeah.
Like, it's like as much as you pay for like 2 apples.
Dude, it's fucking insane. I mean, it's the subsidies in that industry are just out of this world. And I think that is something that I could definitely, that's something I would, most of my energy goes towards thinking about, I think, or like if somebody wants to talk about it, I think that's usually where I'll kind of end up,
I think same. And I think the reason why I do choose to then have the often uncomfortable conversation, like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to eat. I don't eat that way.
Yeah.
And then for the person to ask, well, why not?
Yeah.
And then to talk about it, even though I probably know that they don't agree with me or that they might feel like I'm attacking them or something because obviously they're choosing to. So by default, I'm essentially saying you're wrong for doing what you're doing, is because I think that has at least for me, the biggest effect that I can have on actually changing people's perception of where their food comes from and what it means, and that by doing so it would reduce it and it would help in some tiny way with the overall picture.
Yeah,
so
I respect that.
I see it as like a responsibility. Like, something, you gotta kind of like, I don't like talking about it. It's not something I look forward to.
Right.
It's not like I'm eager to go and meet new people so I can talk about my veganism.
Yeah.
But I kind of see it as if it gets brought up or someone asks, I have to, kind of, whether I want to or not, because I just feel, I would feel like it was wrong if I just said, oh, I don't eat that. And well, why not? Well, that's just my choice, like, and actively try and keep it as like a personal thing only.
Right.
Because I see it as an issue that needs to be done something about.
That's I cannot, as much as I would love to say, oh, that's my reason to, it's just not. Yeah. I think that's sort of where the difference is. And I think we've talked about this a lot, which is like, well, why do I seem not to care?
Yeah.
And I think it's,
not that you don't care, but maybe it's just not as much.
Yeah.
So it's like when I ask you the fundamental kind of, is it right or wrong? It's maybe there isn't necessarily one for you. Maybe you don't find it to always be
But also,
wrong.
There's a big difference between how I choose to live my life, and I have ultimate control over that. Mm-hmm. And when I control what I buy from the grocery store and all that stuff, I feel like that's 100% in my control. So I would have someone else to answer to if I decided to change something there. But the whole, bringing it up with family or blah, 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 like it kind of falls into the realm of like politics and religion and all these things for me where I'm like, I used to be quite nasty towards my grandparents about religion and politics because I think when you're growing up, you sort of like have these ideas and you think, well, how could they possibly believe in Jesus and heaven? And what a stupid idea, right? And then slowly, I don't know, it's like as the years have gone by, I'd rather just not talk about it and just respect their way of doing things, even though I do disagree with it. And even if they bring it up, now I think I would try to not be as harsh, maybe be a little bit more understanding. But that's just personally because I just feel
that also makes sense because you've probably reached the conclusion that they're not gonna.
But it's even like you got family members who are like
Jesus, and
like I don't want to call anybody out, but my family, some people are maybe like borderline racist a little bit, right? And it's
unknowingly so, maybe.
Yeah, unknowing, and it's just like culture, maybe, and age, and where they grew up, and a lot of factors play into it. And I don't think it's necessarily my role to try and educate them on how you should act these days. A little bit, I can try to understand where they come from. I mean, ultimately, they're not doing anybody any harm. It's just like stupid talk, I guess, at the end of the day. And it's, it's born out of ignorance. And, that's that. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do about it because it just makes it uncomfortable for everybody. If I then suddenly go up and say, here's what I think about you guys. Here's what I think is wrong about the way you're living your life. This is how I think you should think about politics and religion and blah, blah, blah. And it always, people say you can have a normal talk about politics, but I feel like it's so divisive right now, the country and everything, and you're just starting a fight. I mean, even if you're saying my intention was never to start a fight, it's like, yeah, but it goes there 80% of the time. So after a certain point, I say, okay, I'm not going to go down that line because I don't want to make the night uncomfortable for everybody. For something that, somebody might say, oh, that might have a tiny effect. Yeah. And I'd say, well, I guess that tiny effect, the potential for a tiny effect isn't worth it to ruin every family outing.
No, I mean, I think I definitely agree. I don't bring it up with my family.
And the veganism
every
thing,
time I want to,
right?
Because it's just not worth doing every time because it's not gonna make a difference.
And you can say as much as you want that people aren't that you're not trying to start a fight. But if you drive a car here and I go, oh, I don't drive cars, or like if someone said, why don't you have a car? Oh, I don't drive cars because I don't want to pollute the environment. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm not directly saying it, but I am saying something a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah, because I think that's
the thing is, like, I know factor. Cars pollute environments. I don't need to tell you that.
Well, sometimes I think you do, because it is something as big as climate change and global warming, and that this is something that directly impacts it. Yeah. It is something that goes beyond just I don't want to disrupt the peace, because it is important, right? And everyone is shouting saying it's super important, let's do something about it, and then most people are like, let's do something about it, and then not really doing anything. So it's like,
but you can do something about it yourself.
I think
that makes a change.
That's why I think for me saying I'm vegan is actually something that is not entirely true, because I definitely have caught myself feeling almost embarrassed that I was that and didn't want to say it. Would rather just avoid the situation, if that makes sense, instead of say, oh, I'm vegan, that's why. Because it does lead to that conversation. Naturally. Inevitably, people want to, it's weird if you say that and then someone's going to be polite and be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, why? I'd like.
And you're going to have to say.
And then it's like,
I'm not trying to fuck up the world.
I don't want to.
And they're going to be like,
and you're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, that it's a very satisfying thing to, in a situation where you often feel like I can't do anything about this. Mm-hmm. Like this is such a big issue, or this is an important thing, and you just kind of feel like, well, I can't. Like, what am I what can I do? Well, you can not eat all this stuff that has a direct impact, measurable impact on the environment in a positive way. And it's very satisfying. And for that reason, I think I do like saying in most situations, I'm vegan.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about like when you first start something new, you kind of like, you have this like hype about it. It's new and it's like cool. You're part of some group.
Mm-hmm.
And then that often wears off. But for me, I don't really feel like I'm like, there's definitely vegans who I don't agree with, and I don't agree with their way of communicating. And I don't feel like because they call themselves vegan too, that I'm like, oh, that's bad for me.
Right.
I don't want to be part of that group.
Right.
Which like it's such a big, it's like saying when people say, oh, like men do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's so broad.
Yeah.
Like that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not even offended by it.
Yeah.
Or I guess I am because it's stupid to say.
Oh, who cares?
But it's like,
it's
such a big category that you can have a bunch of weirdos who don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Okay.
A little coffee break.
MP.
So I think we're clear on like communicating with people we know, and that those are the reasons.
Yeah.
And they make sense.
Yeah.
One other thing we've talked about is like you said that you had a problem with when people will like stand in the streets with signs and, you know, I don't know, what do you say, protest or promote? Which one would it be?
It's protest, yeah.
Or like go to a farm and stand outside the farm and like take pictures of the pigs being wheeled in and like, you know, stirring things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that and why you find that to be?
I don't know. That doesn't strike me as thinking. I don't know what I meant by that necessarily then. I don't think that's the worst. I think maybe I've questioned my own motives if I were to do that, like protests in general. So I don't really feel the need to.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about
protests.
What does a protest actually do? For?
And obviously it does something. I mean, I think it's hard to deny that obviously there are protests that have led to something. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Well, I mean, maybe we feel the same about that.
Yeah, maybe.
And that I think there was a point where
we were
talking the thing about like standing outside in front of a farm, and you were saying, let's just let him do whatever he wants, essentially.
Yeah.
And that you shouldn't be trying to intervene.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Off of that, I think sometimes, like when you turn vegan, for example, right? It like we said, it's such a rush at the beginning that you feel the need to make everybody change with you.
Yeah.
And I think there are, a farmer, his entire life is built on that business.
Right.
So someone coming and saying you shouldn't do this anymore now.
Yeah.
Is a little bit much, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Although I get that climate change is a very urgent issue and everything, but that's where the complexity of it all comes in, I think. And it's like, well, what's that farmer expected to do? And isn't it a little bit out of touch, I guess? Or I understand that it just gets very close to like religious people thinking, oh my God, everyone's damned.
Preaching.
So I need to go and let people know that if you don't speak the word of the Lord, you're going straight to hell. And if I really believe that, that's why I'll go out and say, oh my God, I need to tell you this thing. Otherwise, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And you don't understand. I need to tell you right now because you need to repent right now.
Right.
And I think it gets a little bit close to that for me. And a little bit, I would hope that we'd have a little bit more understanding that, yes, facts are facts, right? There is a massive
That's an important
issue.
difference.
But
between the religion and the veganism.
But also we need to give people time.
Yeah.
And I know that's a bullshit thing because then it's like, oh, it could go on forever. And that's how people,
bureaucracy
works. And that's how you make sure nothing gets done ever. But it's like, but we do have to be a little bit patient, and we do have to educate people, and you can't expect, just because you had the privilege, it's not even a privilege, but you had the time to figure out this stuff for yourself, you can't expect that someone else took that same time to do it as well.
I think it is a privilege.
Oh, for sure. I think like,
I think it
if we were still dealing with World War II or like, you know, industrialism or whatever, there's no time for veganism. I think veganism comes out of like, you know, there's an issue, and now there's a lot of people with certain, and I think there's a reason it came out in Western culture kind of first and everything, right?
It's like, as urgent as climate change is,
right?
It's not very immediate in our day-to-day lives. It's not something that we're confronted with in a way that we can physically see it or feel it. It's this abstract thing that's going on that
might not even affect
is
you, but your children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's not happening today.
Yeah,
well, it is, but it's not going to have we're not going to see the effects for years.
Right.
And that if you're dealing with a divorce, or you have depression, or you're a student trying to finish their studies, or I mean, that's a bad example, but if you're dealing with something that is immediate and right now, even if it's not comparable to climate change, it's not that you're saying which one's more important.
Right.
It's like, well, maybe you don't have just the time of like mental space to be thinking about this other issue as well. It's like only once you feel like you're in a place where you can start taking on something else, something like if you're dying of starvation, the last thing you're going to think about is whether or not it's okay to kill a cow.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
And it gets less and less intense, but that's kind of the rule, I guess.
Yeah.
And only once you kind of crush some kind of threshold, you start to be able to think about something like veganism.
Right.
So maybe it's not so much, and I think it's important what you were saying, that we should have patience a little bit, and that it takes time, because I do think that you go vegan, there's this rush of like, why isn't everyone doing this? Like you said, the facts are facts.
Right.
You feel so strongly about it, and you can back it up, and it makes sense. And when you're talking to people are like, well, yeah, actually, you're probably right. Like, it almost always leads to either a fight because they don't know what to say to it. They don't have any good arguments.
Right.
Or they say, yeah, I mean, I'm just not gonna do that. And it's like, why? And it leads to a lot of frustration. I do. You know? And I think what you need to be able to think is, it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of empathy. Yeah. And it's not going to happen overnight. And it's actually going to save you a lot of frustration and straight up anger if you're able to realize that not everyone is going to act on it straight away. Yeah. Not everyone is in a place where they have time to be thinking about that right now. Yeah. And that it's almost like you need to understand for you to be able to be okay with it. Like, if you go into it and saying, why isn't everyone doing this? Yeah. It's very upsetting. Yeah. But if you can go into it saying, this is something everyone should do and it's important to talk about, I understand that not everyone's going to get it straight away. Right. Or that, I mean, there's some people who are never going to understand it or never will be interested. Right. That's, another conversation. That actually makes you makes you feel better, and it'll probably make you better at talking about it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also a priority thing, like we had talked about a lot of times. I think when I see somebody who's not vegan, it's very... I don't think I should assume they're not doing anything. Right. I think you got to assume, well, they might be doing something else for the environment. They might be really into composting and recycling, and they spend their Saturdays going to the recycling. Who fucking knows? So I think it's very hard to point a finger at somebody and say, you got to change. How do you not understand what's going on? Almost always the wrong thing to point a finger at someone. Yeah. I think it's if we go back to responsibility, it's like you could tell them about it. Right. And you can't really do anything about what they choose to do afterwards. Right. But I do think that it's totally natural and also totally fair and justified that once you've talked to someone who has agreed with what you're saying, It's like, well, why aren't you doing anything about it then?
But
to
it's
be
I don't
to be frustrated
no, I don't
about
agree with that, because I really think that people have to come up with you got to come up with the thing yourself. Never has somebody told me something that I didn't have to add. You can't tell me something and then I automatically believe it. If anything, it's going to turn me off to the idea, right? It's really something that from within, if you want to change something about yourself, you really have to kind of come from within and get the ideas yourself, and you can get help from other people as well and kind of form your own opinion. And then I think you kind of really change. It's the same with like an alcoholic. You can show them all the statistics in the world, and you can literally show them pictures of their fucking liver or kidney or whatever and be like, this is what it's doing to you. It's not going to change anything until they themselves decide that they want to change something, right?
I agree.
And if anything, I could turn them off. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but like there have been situations where something like that happened, and I was like, I don't know if it was the best idea for me to say that. I think that's something that they had to figure out for themselves, as well-intentioned as it was on my part. And you do want to call out people's bullshit, and you do want to do all this stuff, but a little bit. And that's why I love art and film and all this stuff, because it kind of allows you to say these things without ever pointing a finger. You're kind of adding to the pool of knowledge and experience, and it's a bigger picture sort of thing. And through that sort of change kind of incrementally happens, which again, I understand that climate change is extremely urgent, and pretty much everything I'm saying is like a long-term solution,
but it does have to be a long-term solution.
Yeah. Or, I also don't think that the person that, not you, but you're yelling at or trying to, push your agenda on is probably not it's not the root of the issue. It feels very surface level. Like, oh, if I yell at this person on the street, it's going to have an effect. And it's like, I don't think so. I think trying to change a policy or trying to, do something on a larger scale, try to tackle corporations that are subsidizing or, receiving money for animal products. Why does that happen? How does that happen? Trying to get more to those roots, I think, is actually trying to solve a problem. I think pointing the finger at somebody at the grocery store and being like, why, where that meat actually came from, and blah. I just feel like it's like, really, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that either.
Buy her.
I don't think anyone should be yelling on the street or should be going into a supermarket and pointing out to people who are buying products not to buy those. I do find that a group of people standing outside of a supermarket with signs,
it's a little bit more fair. It's
standing
free,
there.
Yeah.
If someone walks by and seems interested, walking up to them and saying, do you know what we're doing here?
Yeah.
And then talking to them about it is how you then start to get policies changed, because you need people to understand what's going on, and you need people to be supporting those changes.
I agree.
And so that is,
I guess that would be a form of education. Yeah, but you can't force educate people.
No. I don't think, no.
You just can't. So yeah, I think if I said that's not a good thing to do, I think I would take that back and say I actually think that would be one of the few ways to do it, and those people should be like, thank you for doing that. That's probably a good thing. And it is shocking. I mean, when you see what it is pretty shocking. And I think a lot of people might genuinely not know what goes on at some of these factory farms, sort of what the practices are. That can be quite gruesome and inhumane, I guess.
I'm struggling a little bit with the. So once you've, like, let's say you've had a conversation with someone that you care about veganism, and they've heard what you had to say, and they maybe even watched a documentary, and they seem to agree with what, that sounds like an important thing, and it's obvious. I don't agree with the way those animals are being treated, or I think we should do what we can to, save the environment.
Yeah.
Then a couple months later, you go back, talk to them, and they've done nothing differently. What then? It's just like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, that's humans. I mean,
I agree that that's very normal.
Yeah.
But like, what is the right thing or the best thing to do in that situation?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean,
so one way would be call their bullshit and say, hang on, you were saying that you agreed with this. Why aren't you doing anything about it?
Yeah. I would read into it that they just don't want to do it.
Right. But like for poor reasons that they would be aware of themselves, kind of. In the same way that if you point out to an alcoholic, like, you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
This is going to kill you. You're hurting everyone in your family. You know, you might have a moment of getting through to them where they're like, yeah, you're right, I should do something about it.
Yeah.
And then
nothing
nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's like,
what do you do?
Is the right thing to do just not... I mean, I'm not saying there's a high likelihood that that's going to then change.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like...
I don't know. That's sort of a life question. I think that's a really good question.
Shouldn't we just keep trying to help?
Yes, but also...
I don't want to sound like we're trying to save anyone.
No,
like,
no.
Become vegan and you're saved. Kind of, that's where the whole religious thing gets a bit weird, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not... It doesn't seem right to also just be like, okay, well, I mean, I tried.
I know. I think it's a very big question and a very good question, because I don't know what the answer is. And I've had that exact example with an alcoholic where it's like, okay, but you don't want to every time... If this is a person you have to see in your life,
right?
It's like, you don't want it to be every single time you go, you have to have this massive... You know, they know. At a certain point in my head, I say, this person knows.
Yeah.
I don't need to say anything. They know what I think about it. I've made it clear. Was uncomfortable enough the first time I had to fucking do it. And it's like, personally, I think if you're the kind of I would ask people like, hey, point that shit out to me. Like, if I'm doing something that's hypocritical or,
right.
you know, like I'm saying something, I'm not acting that way, call me out. Like, 100%. Then maybe I see it in a different way and I say, oh yeah, I have. But I don't think everyone's like that. And it's not tooting my own horn. I think it's just a little bit of a, you know, I'm younger as well. I'm more malleable at the moment. I think certain people are just, it's hard to get through.
I think it's a good point to analyze, or at least think about, well, is that person ever going to change? Does it even make sense?
And I don't want to, if it's also like, you don't want to ruin the last years of someone's life by just constantly, even though some things like an alcoholic, you're like, they're killing themselves. I mean, they're ultimately...
And on a broader scale, you're also, in a weird way, to everyone who's younger, saying, we don't talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's just, you know, I mean, it's not something we talk about.
Yeah.
Which in a weird way is, it could be seen as well, in a way it's okay to do these things.
Sort of, or it's, yeah.
I mean, that's another thing that I've thought a lot about.
Yeah.
It's like, well, shouldn't we, maybe we're putting a little bit too much of the focus on the person doing the bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, yeah, we don't want to make the situation uncomfortable or ruin the last years of their life by really having a conflict with them.
Yeah.
But maybe, and I'm really not saying this is right.
I don't know.
It's an interesting thought, though. I haven't thought about it before. Would be to, well, what kind of example do we want to set to the next generation in our own family? Like, this is something that's not okay, and we choose to deal with it.
Right.
I don't know. It's a little bit of a tangent.
It's a very tough one. But I think you can still address it. I mean, I don't think it affects, like, if you said, oh, you know, now the whole family sees that we don't talk about something like that, let's say. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think you can still talk about it without having it to be like a you know. It's like, to your kids or to whoever.
I think that's always the wrong thing to do.
And it's
never gonna, no one's ever gonna, you're never gonna be like, you are doing something wrong. But you're being a bad person. If you're and they're gonna change. That's never gonna happen.
No. But maybe, you know, I don't know. Sometimes there are stories where someone says, you know, it took someone to finally point the finger at me and say, you're fucking doing this. And then they suddenly realized it. So
it's worth trying. It's worth trying.
Worth trying. Maybe that's it. Right? Try it.
Yeah.
And then read into the situation and decide whether it's worth continuing with that or if you're just kind of making everything more difficult. You know, because I think you could also turn somebody away in a weird way. If I accuse you of being a drug addict, it could lead you to go even further into, fuck this guy, I'm not a drug addict, I can totally handle this shit, this is no problem for me, blah, blah, blah. Like, you could totally push somebody even further away, and all you were trying to do was help.
Yeah.
You know, because I think the thing that really turns people off ultimately is I'm better than you. I know you should listen to me because I've got the answers. Nobody's ever said those sort of things. And someone's like, yes, tell me more. They're like, fuck you, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. If Jesus came to me today, I'd be like, nah, you're a little weird. You know?
Yeah.
And that I think I really believe in that idea of people need to come up with that shit on their own. It's very hard to.
I do too. But I do think that sometimes people need to hear over and over again that what they're doing, that there might be an alternative to what's going on.
Right. But then there's sort of this thing as well.
When we're talking about patience, maybe it does just take many times.
Yeah.
Many softer conversations rather than one big one.
But I understand it because we all do it as well. I mean, everybody knows nobody's 100% ethical.
Right.
Show me that person, right? We all do shit that even if you say, oh, I don't really know about that, I didn't really look into it yet, it's like, you fucking...
We all choose things to be willfully ignorant about.
Totally.
It's just which ones are we choosing?
Right. So to suddenly say, oh, these people, they don't understand veganism, it's like, well, you do the exact same thing. I mean, everybody does the same thing. You know that your iPhone's made by kids in some fucking piece of shit factory, blah, blah, blah. And we choose not to think about it too much and continue to use them and say, well, hopefully that gets fixed sometime in the future. Obviously, nobody supports it. But people also aren't too like...
But it's not so obvious.
Yeah, but again, why is there... But everybody like kind of knows about it. Or like sweatshops or clothes or buying cheap clothes or cheap electronics or, you know, anything. It's like... I guess it's not so obvious. But then again, meat in the grocery store isn't obvious. I mean, it seems like such a simple connection, but it's like I said, before I watched that documentary, I really don't think I thought of a live pig when I bought bacon. I don't think the image of a pig ever would come into my head. Of course, if you ask me, I would be like, yeah, I know where that comes from.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's become so routine. It's packaged. It doesn't even, it looks like, we call it bacon.
It's called something different.
It doesn't look like flesh. It looks like bacon.
Yeah.
You know? So I think from that perspective, I guess I'm understanding, but I also don't want to be complacent to a certain extent, you know? I think people should be pressed. If somebody's doing nothing, it's like, yeah, I guess you're kind of... although even then they might just... I don't know what the answer is.
You know, I feel like if someone is... They recycle everything perfectly. They don't use an iPhone. They don't buy clothes from H&M. They use solar power to power their house.
Yeah.
But they eat meat every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't justify that. It's not like, oh, well, then that means, okay, you're doing your part. You're allowed to do that.
It doesn't justify
I think it's like, great.
But,
and...
yeah, but that's like, isn't that a bit much?
What's much?
Because we had talked once about this whole idea of like where I was like, you know, why do I... And you said to me like, oh, you know, I think people can only prioritize so many things in their life. You have a list of priorities, and I really believe that now too. And it's like, let's say that number 7 things that you can really prioritize in your life.
Right.
If you want to add another thing, you can't just say, now I have 8.
You gotta get rid of something.
Put one away.
That's true.
So I really believe that, and I think everyone is doing they've prioritized what they've prioritized, and maybe you can have an argument about what someone's priorities are.
Which ones should...
But there's always going to be, you know, it's veganism. What's the next thing, right? And it's like, there's always going to be more things. And I think
that's good.
And you should, and people can argue, what are the priorities? What are the biggest priorities?
We should keep getting better.
Totally.
We should keep upgrading our priorities.
Yeah, but everyone's focusing on different things, you know? And I think it's, for me, the easiest thing to do, and it is the easiest thing, right? Is just to focus on myself and say, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it occasionally.
Yeah.
If somebody really asks or whatever, if I think it's not going to turn into a, you know?
Yeah.
And, yeah, I guess that's where I sort of sit. And then I would... circling back to the whole like why might I have a little bit of a hesitation to call myself a vegan would be exactly that, because I'm trying to do something that is personal to me. I don't identify with the diet, or I don't see the diet as something that identifies me. The same way I even go so far as to say, like, I find it hard sometimes to say, you know, your nationality is your identity or whatever. You know, oh, Germans are like this. Oh, Americans, they're like that. And it's like, I don't know if it's whether I'm bilingual or I kind of grew up in both, a foot in both countries, so I don't feel like I'm really part of either, or either I'm a little bit part of both. That I just don't identify with those things.
Right, but I'd still call myself Danish.
Yeah,
even though I don't feel very Danish.
Right. So what's the difference? You know.
Well, it's just I guess simple.
But I'd rather have someone say, "Well, who are you?" rather than, "Oh, where are you from?" Where are you from is such a like, oh.
Right, but if someone asked you where are you from?
Yeah, I would say Germany.
Nowhere.
I'd say Germany and America, but I would say I just wouldn't necessarily see those things as like who I am. It's about as good as me saying, well, I'm white. Yeah, it's true. It doesn't really add anything.
Yeah.
I have blue eyes. Great.
Yeah. And there's obviously a reason why we use language that way, though, because it's a way of communicating,
generalizing people,
I guess.
And it's a little bit arbitrary. I mean, it's a little bit like, oh, I was born on this patch of soil and you on that patch of soil. Now we're supposed to be like totally different people. I'd say everyone's the fucking same, dude. It's such an arbitrary. And I also don't like this whole, like, you know, I think people really, not that I don't like it, it just never worked for me. And I think actually it was quite depressing at a time because I would look at people and I'd say like, oh, that's the archery guy. He does archery and he always has archery shirts on and that's his thing. He's the archery guy and people know that about him, you know? And I felt so lost at a time where I felt like everybody had these things that identified them. Like, I'm this guy. Right. I have these posters in my room and blah, blah, blah. And I just felt like I'm nothing. I have nothing. I don't care enough about anything to want to make it a part of me in some grand way or to be part of a group somehow, you know? And I think, yeah, I don't know what that is, but that's where the veganism thing would sort of come from. I was like, I just don't want to be part of the group. I don't feel a need to. It's also not shitting on the group or anything. I just don't feel a need to. And I don't want to identify myself as that. So I guess I just say, oh, if someone says, well, what kind of diet do you eat at home most of the time? You know, oh, plant-based. Okay.
I don't consider it a diet.
Yeah. We talked about
yeah. It's like,
I mean, I guess it's semantic. It's like a word is a word, you know?
Yeah. No, it's interesting though. I find it interesting.
Yeah.
I definitely don't feel like I'm like a member of a group or that I'm.
But it makes it easier, I think, to
known as the person who is that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm interested why you feel so strongly that is associated with it when someone says that about you.
Yeah, because I think people all the time, we generalize groups and then we make arguments against them. And we say, oh, vegans are like this.
That's true.
And it's like, I just don't like that.
But aren't you kind of doing that?
Huh?
Aren't you kind of doing that?
Am I?
Yeah, aren't you kind of... clap. Aren't you kind of doing that by saying, I don't want to be part of the group? I don't feel the need to be part of the group. Isn't that kind of saying that vegans are a group? Maybe it isn't that at all. And maybe it just means I care about...
I guess it's just an identifier. It's not like, oh, here's the group of vegans. But there's definitely people who say, oh, I'm a vegan. So if enough people say it,
because
you
it
start
means
to have a feeling of like, oh, there's these types of people who are vegans. And then it becomes a bit of ammunition for other people because one vegan does something and then they're like, oh, the vegans do this. It's like, well, don't paint us all in a broad stroke.
Yeah, I agree. Don't do that. But it's like if a person who sails boats for a living comes and you ask them, what do you do? And he says, or are you a sailor? And they say, no, I'm someone who is on a boat all the time and uses sails to get myself over there. But I don't identify with being a sailor because I don't like Mikey over on the other bay who sails with a blue boat. Yeah,
I guess, but sailors don't really have a political like ideal, or they're not really seen as a group of.
But isn't it like an environmental and ethical? I guess you're saying that's political, and that if it's political, it's
political in the sense of like they don't have a thing. Like sailors aren't like, we believe in this. You know. So but I mean, it'd be weird for somebody to say, I don't want to be.
Sure, I guess vegan.
Because the other thing is, if I say I'm vegan, unintentionally, that the person I'm talking to is taking the group of vegans, what they believe, and now attributing them to me. And I would rather you just ask me, what do you think about this? And I'll give you my specific answer. I don't want Ideal to be answering my questions, because honestly, I might like this whole podcast. I mean, I'm sure there would be vegans out there that say, what I'm saying is completely
not vegan.
Yeah, right?
That's true.
And that's what I want to avoid is, like, first of all, I don't want to piss those people off. Second of all, I don't want to have their opinions attributed to me just because I've decided to identify myself a certain way. If I say plant-based, all you're really thinking is like, oh, he eats plants.
Yeah.
There's no like extra thing, no extra baggage that comes along with it,
It's definitely true that if...
So I guess even the country thing, I mean, if I say I'm German, there's no real baggage that comes along with that, So I'm not as hesitant to be like, oh, if somebody asked me, I wouldn't be like, oh, countries are a made up, thing that we've come up with and arbitrarily drawn lines in the sand and blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't go through that whole thing. I would just say, yeah, I'm German, because there's not a big thing associated with it, The same way with, I even hate this whole thing now, like, oh, I'm a Democrat. It's like, you say that, and now there's a thing, you're thinking a certain thing about it. You would think you have certain answers to my questions that you wouldn't have to ask anymore because I've said that. But it's such a huge swath of, like, I could be 60% Democrat and 40% conservative on certain things, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, okay, well, overall, I guess I'm more of a Democrat. I'm not saying this is me at all, just as a general case.
Yeah, I get it.
And now someone might say, oh, he's 100% Democrat. He must believe everything is...
Right.
I said, no, you got to ask me each question.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Oh, this is what I think about that. Oh, that leans a little bit more conservative. What do you think about this? Oh, that leans a little bit more. I hate this thing of like there's one word and because I think people also use it when they don't know shit. And they're just like, oh, I'll just say I'm a Democrat. And then I can kind of just go along with what everyone else is saying. And I don't really have to have my own opinions on every question. I can kind of just clump myself in the group of like, this is what we all believe. And it's like, we all? I didn't sign up for that. So then I'm more inclined, I guess, to say, dude, I don't fucking know. Just ask me I'll come at the end of the day and I'll answer all the questions. And then I can kind of say I'm leaning more towards this side or that side. But I think it's a little bit lazy or a little bit whatever to just say you're that. Or maybe, am I overthinking it?
I think so. But I do get it.
Yeah.
I think that I can't really think of anything that we don't really agree on.
Mm-hmm.
Things we don't agree on are maybe more about the best way to communicate certain things, which I think is hard to agree on at all.
Yeah.
And so in the way that you're using Democrats and conservatives, there are obvious differences in people's beliefs there.
Yeah.
But I don't see that between us in this vegan thing.
No, but
that it's harder for me to see well, now you think all these things about me. But I'm like, yeah, but you do think those things.
Well, what about like, I see, with the veganism thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not trying to say,
I mean, there's some pretty...
We don't have to keep beating this conversation at this point. I get it.
But even to the point, I mean, you could be a Republican, I could be a Democrat, and we would think that we're totally opposed. And what we might find is that we actually agree on 50% of the things. Yeah. But we wouldn't know that because I would say, oh, he's a fucking Republican. Probably hates the gays too. He's probably a fucking Islamophobe, We would have this automatic animosity towards each other for which there's really no reason and only came about because I decided to say, hi, I'm Taylor, I'm a Democrat. And you, hi, I'm Matt, I'm a Republican. Whereas if we talked one-on-one and said, hey, what do you think about this fiscal policy, whatever, specifically, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about it, figure it out. And once you do that, you kind of land in it would be very weird to say afterwards, oh, that's a Democrat, that's a Republican. You'd just be like, oh, that's okay. So that's what I guess we agree on this certain thing. I think that's the trouble that it can bring about. The same way if you say you're vegan, I think a lot of people might have had other experiences with vegans that pissed them off or something. So automatically you get this animosity for which there's really no reason, because I might say, you know what, we're actually way more similar than you think.
Yeah, almost all the time. Everyone kind of agrees.
Right. And so if you realize that, what help does it do to say that you're a vegan if it just automatically kind of puts you a few pegs down in someone's, or automatically makes them defensive because they think they're about to get, Whereas you could just say, hey, what do you think about factory farming? If you never bring up veganism, if you literally never bring up veganism and say, well, what do you think about like mass slaughtering animals the way we do it right now? Again, most people would probably say, again, you know what, I really don't agree with that. It is just,
I mean, let's be clear. The word vegan is it is a word that explains something about specifically the food you eat. It means you eat no animal products. That's the definition of it.
I know, but that definition and connotation are two different things.
Like tricking someone into having a conversation about essentially veganism by saying, what do you think about factory farming? I mean, you could keep it just within factory farming.
Yeah.
But isn't that just like if I'm a priest and I don't tell anyone, and I go to a dinner and I say, well, what do you think about God? And then
those are we
start talking about
tied.
It, and then it's revealed that I'm a priest. Doesn't that feel a bit weird? Like you were keeping something secret from me? Like,
no, because why would it wouldn't make a difference at a dinner party. It would just, I mean, God and factory farming, those things are so, it's like almost a synonym for the fucking thing. But I think if it was a more nuanced conversation that rather than saying, hey, I'm a priest, here's what I think about this, you could bring up a discussion without anybody needing to know you're a priest, and you would, I think, have a more fruitful argument at the end of the day, maybe, because people would be less clouded.
They'd probably have an easier time saying what they really thought.
Yeah. And you wouldn't immediately be on the back foot. And I think to ignore the fact that there are words that have strong connotations with them, like veganism. I mean, even the China study book starts, I think, with the guy saying, I don't want to use that word because it's got such heavy ties to it.
That's true. I keep hearing that all over the place. Maybe I just haven't personally experienced that much negative, like, baggage from saying I'm vegan. I don't feel like I've been hit with a bunch of people thinking they already know what I'm about to say or who I am or what I think.
Right.
Maybe that's what it is. And that...
Yeah, because a lot of it...
Just a little...
I think if you get away from the overarching umbrella thing and you can kind of have these more like nuanced discussions... I'm trying to think like of a good example. I can't come up with one on the spot. But I just feel like it's like you're getting rid of any sort of feeling that people might have that, oh, I'm protecting a certain idea that I have or blah, blah. It's more just like very specifically, what do you think about the food pyramid? And you can have a whole discussion about that, which is so interesting to talk about. And you don't really need the veganism thing in there. You can just talk about science and facts and how we've found out that certain things are healthier than other things. And actually our food pyramid was totally wrong that we grew up on. And isn't that funny? How did that come about? You can't do that
by saying,
I'm saying
vegan.
If I introduce myself as, hey, I'm vegan, let's talk about the food pyramid.
You don't think you could have that conversation?
I think there'd be two different conversations. Not necessarily, I would never say 100% of the time that's going to happen, but I think definitely you're putting yourself in a little bit of a box, I think, if you're going to start with who I am, because now the other person...
I'm confused.
Are you?
Yeah, because I don't... You're also saying that you don't feel like you want to talk about that kind of stuff with other people, because then you're essentially saying that you think by default that what they're doing isn't right. So if we're talking about factory farming...
Right.
I think factory farming is this. Well, what do you think? They probably agree. I don't think it's right.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk some more about it.
Well, what do you want to talk about? I mean, at the time,
I don't eat any animals. What do you do? Oh, I eat animals. Are you having a conversation, which is what you said that you would be hesitant to do?
That's a good point.
I mean, there really doesn't have to be a right or wrong.
No, it's a good question.
We've had interesting conversations regarding these topics.
Right.
And they often land on like how to talk about it.
Right.
Which I think is something a lot of people struggle with. Which is why I guess we're talking about it. And I was trying to find like, why is this important?
Yeah.
Like, is this important? Does it even matter? This conversation we're having. I think it actually does.
Yeah.
Just justifying to myself here that we're still talking about it.
Is it too long?
No.
Okay. To that point, if I think of, because what I was saying is like, oh, I don't like to talk, or I've learned not to talk about like politics at the dinner table, which I think is a common thing, you know, especially in America. It's like,
right.
It's just going to turn into a fight. Like, why ruin a dinner over it? That doesn't mean you can't have conversations about ideas of politics, but as soon as you make it because I think when it turns nasty is when it goes, you Republicans always do this, and then they go, that's bullshit, dude, because you Democrats, look at this president, you guys are the ones who always do that. And I think that's where the argument suddenly turns nasty.
Yeah.
Because we're talking in these general things, and now one person is trying to defend this side, and another person has defending this other side.
A yelling match.
Whereas I can talk to those same people if I talk about something very specific. Right? That's a little bit more, it's a little bit, I don't want to call it hidden or anything, but it's like we can have the exact same conversation almost about something very specific without it turning into a fight. Because then it just becomes, oh, I believe this a little bit more and you believe that a little bit more. That's fine. I'm not trying to defend this massive thing behind me, which apparently gets people very heated.
No, you're right. I'm just thinking now that it's not true that I haven't been met with some negative opinions just from someone knowing that I was vegan.
Right.
And that it was almost impossible to have a conversation with them because they knew that my idea of a solution to the issues that we were talking about was just not eating any of the products at all.
Yeah.
And so because they felt like that wasn't the right choice, they didn't want to hear anything I had to say about the subject.
Right.
So I can totally see that. Whereas if I'd gone into it and they didn't know that, but it's also like, I don't want to lie.
You don't have to lie.
It just seems like a natural...
I don't get asked very much, maybe, is the thing. I really don't have the experience of being like, what? I would have to bring it up myself. I mean, I would have to... And that goes back to the sort of the thing of like, the whole reason of why I want to avoid... If someone cooks something for me on a rare occasion, it's not like I'm eating out at people's houses every night, but it's like if they do that, I'd rather just not say anything.
Right.
As soon as I go, oh, sorry, I don't eat that. First of all, you have the picky thing that comes up.
That's the only time
then you have the veganism thing that comes up.
100%.
Then that becomes a whole discussion. Then I got to explain somehow that it's like, yeah, but I don't really, like, ask me specific questions if you want to know more about it, if they're asking certain things. And it just becomes this whole thing that just becomes too... Like, I just wanted to have a nice dinner with that family.
So when is there ever a situation where...
And you know what? It's not a broad thing. I think it's me is the issue. That was the issue in that situation. I think maybe other people would be able to handle it better.
Right.
I think I used to, especially when I was, like, very early 20s. I thought I'm still early 20s.
Clinging on.
Yeah, I used to be quite, like, aggressive, you know, about my ideas and ideals and... thinking I was right and blah blah blah, and I might still think I'm right about those things, but I'm just
there's just a better way of talking about
things.
Totally
More productive way of talking about things. And an understanding of like, just because I've reasoned it out in my head still doesn't make it a truth, you know.
We should talk about truth.
That's gonna get... Do you ever listen to that Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson? Oh my fucking god, dude. That's talk about a 2-hour podcast going around in circles.
I think that was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I think let's end it there.
Is there anything else to be said?
Obviously.
Oh, well, we can have it part 2. Maybe people can leave.
Yeah, it's a tough one because there's so many different things.
There are.
I mean, we didn't even really talk about like.
There are.
We didn't talk about the issues really. We just talked about specifically the word vegan and what it means and how to talk about it with others, which is very, like, that's only one part of, we didn't talk about climate change or health or the environment
right.
or ethics.
Yeah, but those are also facts. I don't want to like
right.
You
know. But it's interesting still.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that. Yeah, no, let's leave it there.
Okay.
We'll see you next week on Burning Boat Business.
Business.